Ken Harrison here, former composer for the MacGyver series back in the 80s and 90s, I guess that was. Then Rick did have a passion for Western music, so we went on and did Legend after that, and I did all the episodes for that, and that was kind of a hoot. And I'm here talking with Matt Jackson on his podcast.
Hi, I'm Richard Dean Anderson.
Name's MacGyver.
Colonel Jack O'Neill, SG-1.
My name is Pratt, Ernest Pratt.
I always get a happy, tingly feeling when I see those guys.
Name one contract that I failed to execute.
MacGyver.
Oh, here we go.
You're a target. And I don't intend to miss.
Over my rotting corpse. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? Glowing eyes, cliché behavior, evilness, that kind of thing. Is mental illness contagious?
You think?
You can do anything you want to do if you put your mind. Well, you do have a penchant for pulling brilliant ideas out of your butt. Head. Out of your head when we need them. Oh, the stuff's already here. I just find a different way to use it.
I like your attitude.
Permission to take a team through the Stargate, sir.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the MacGyver podcast. I'm your host, Mac Jackson, and I'm thrilled today to have someone who, if you've ever listened to a previous podcast episode, you've heard me talk about how essential and timeless the music is. And I'm thrilled to have one of the composers from the show on major important episodes too, Ken Harrison. So thank you for joining us, Ken.
You bet. Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's funny because I had no idea how to reach out to you. I didn't know if you were on Facebook or, any social media. And I thought, well, who knows if he even, would be interested. And then podcast listener Mark had reached out to me and said that he was in touch with you.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I think he'd like to do it because he's a nice guy. And I'm like, all right, I'm always about the nice guys.
Well, that's great. No, again, Mark reached out. I've received, MacGyver was huge in France. Huge. I mean, they still air it. I still receive residuals from it. So I've received several, fan letters, if you will, from France. And Mark was one of them. But he had a unique situation where he was looking for memorabilia or just keepsakes from that series that he's going to eventually put into some kind of museum. And right now, all my scores and sketches and tapes and what have you are down in my garage and have been for the last 20 plus years. So it was a great excuse to go down there, dig through the archives, get the old scores out and look at all those tiny little notes that I wrote and be able to share them. So it was a labor of love. And I was able to send him, I think we had the original timing sheets for a couple cues. My original, I usually use a 2-line sketch. So I had my original sketch. And then I even had the original orchestrated score. Because when we did the last 3 seasons of MacGyver, they would fly me from LA, where I lived prior to where I am now. They would fly me from LA to Vancouver, Canada to record it. And now they shot most of the episodes up there. So they started to do the music up there because there was a tax benefits for them to use a Canadian, and I am dual citizenship. So I was going to Vancouver every other week to record it. But in those days we used fax machines, and I would orchestrate the score, shove it through a fax machine, and then put the original score in a box. And that's what, again, I was able to find in the garage last week and send Mark a nice package of timing notes, sketches, and the original score. So wow. It was, I think it's going to be fun to share those with people.
Well, if you ever scan them in, through the computer, send them my way. Cause I'll proudly, besides putting them on the website, and I kid you not, I'm a musician myself. I would frame them because they're so, to me personally, they're so influential that I would put them well, you could see my
I
wall.
can see the Mac wall. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would put them among that because, and I'm not kissing butt when I say this though, but your music has been timeless and so I think many people take music for shows for granted. And I think there's such a, one of the things I learned from your writing is not just, obviously it's easy to say, well, you have to match the mood of the moment. Yeah. But I think the real skill is to not overplay it and to know how to do that transition with mood. Like, you know, you're going from a tense moment to an even faster tempo of da 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 da. Okay, now, you know, things are getting ramped up.
Right.
And it's a delicate balance to not overshoot, which I've seen other composers on shows do, or God forbid, not give it the gravitas that it deserves.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I did, you know, my mentors were probably composers that a lot of people haven't heard of, but like Bruce Broughton, Mort Stevens. Again, when I started out as a copyist and librarian for CBS Studio Center in Studio City. And we did such shows as Hawaii Five-0, Gunsmoke, How the West Was Won, and numerous other episodes and Movie of the Weeks. But they were fine composers. Mort Stevens was amazing. Bruce Broughton was amazing. I learned from them because I would go to the recording sessions, and even though I was the copyist, I sat in the booth and gave cues to the engineer saying, "Here comes the flute solo. Here comes the French horn solo." But little did I know that I was in school. I mean, I had the score in front of me. I had the orchestra on the other side of the glass, and all these amazing composers coming through on a weekly basis. That it was a great learning, session for me. And so they taught me, thank goodness they were really fine composers, because I did pick it up. I did learn that the energy is important, even if there's not much going on. And boy, I don't know how many hours of music I wrote of Mac and MacGyver trying to, dispose a bomb or something over minutes and minutes, and not much is going on other than his close-up of his hands. Right. So again, just to put the sense of urgency and energy into it was something I definitely learned from these, my years of sitting in a booth giving cues to the engineer. Yeah. So again, I worked really close with the film. I was known to catch everything in the film. A lot of composers that were wonderful did what we call wallpaper music. And it was basically music that was there, but it didn't necessarily accent or point out a change of mood or something that was important in the scene.
Yeah, it just fills the space.
It just filled the space. It filled the void. But it worked. It worked great. And it was just a different approach. I loved working with the film. I loved it. Again, Johnny Williams is my hero, and he's another one that would catch a light going on. I mean, that's what I did, and it served me well because I did it for 23 years, and that's a good run for in Hollywood. 23 years, constantly. Oh yeah, so,
yeah. Well, I'm telling you, I've had Rick Drew and John Shepard, John Constantine, and Stephen Downing was on recently. And
you're kidding, Steve was there?
Yeah.
That's great. Wow.
all great, wonderful people.
Yeah.
And they would say, like, we would have the conversation saying, one of the things that is minor but yet so important is the pacing of an episode. And I would say just to have MacGyver walk from his car across the street, walk onto a porch and look in a window. Well, not every show can pull that off because a lot of times they want to just get to the action.
Okay, that's right.
But it's those quiet moments that can mean just as much as an explosion if you get that feeling going. And the music, such as yours, has helped keep that, ooh, this is important. Okay, watch. Ooh, he's just walking across the street, but you feel like, you could feel that, anxiety of the moment, because at any moment he can get caught. It's peeking in a window, and I watched other shows that have been less successful in that. We could tell in the editing bay, they probably should have went, all right, just cut that out because we don't, it slows the momentum down.
Well, you know what? And also, Mr. Steve put together a great group of directors too for this series, from the Mike Vehars, the Jim Conway. I mean, there was some marvelous directors in here that really, pictorially, it just really helped, and it just inspired, us composers to have those moments and be able to highlight them. So it was just one of those rare family group efforts on MacGyver. I mean, everybody from top to bottom were all part of the end product, and it showed. I mean, everybody respected everybody. No, there were no egos involved. I mean, Rick was there. Everybody participated on an equal level, and it was just, I was very, very fortunate to be part of that for 7 years.
I think that's one of the legacies of the show too, because everybody's always said the same. It wasn't, like you said, it wasn't about ego. It was about we are part of this end product.
Yeah.
What we all have the same vision. And, I think there's certain shows where you could see where that was. I think Stargate SG-1 with Rick, a lot of those people went over to that. Legend, as you know, was another one where it was such a great show. Unfortunately, it was on a bad network. Yeah. But it was John Constantine said, yeah, we knew we were done before we started, because when they put us on UPN at the time, they're like, we're not really going to do much with it. Only maybe 3 states get to see the station. Yeah. And I remember being so excited. He's doing a cowboy show? Oh, man. And, and then to find out that I'm in Pennsylvania and most of us didn't get that station. I had someone from upstate.
Yeah, it's too bad, because there was a lot of love and a lot of work put into that series, and it was cute as hell. I mean, it was a great little series, and again, it just nobody saw it, which is unfortunate. But
I'll tell you, I was part of the campaign to get it put on DVD, and so thank God it's on DVD now, which is wonderful.
Well, that's wonderful. Again, I'll have to definitely get that.
Yeah, and it's nice and cheap too. So I mean, besides it coming out, I thought, listen, I worked so hard to try and push for this. Whatever they ask, I'm going to pay for it. And then when you look at the price, you go, oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, no, that was a fun show. And a lot of the family went over to that show and worked on it. But Rick went from standing in the rain in Vancouver doing MacGyver to sweating like a pig in down in the South where they filmed it. So that was pretty extreme. But
where did they film it? Do you know?
They filmed it down in Arizona or somewhere. I forget where they did it down there.
You need a lot of desert, so that makes sense.
A lot of desert, But again, they made it look really good. And again, that was just a good group effort. Rick was really involved in the music in that. He kept on sending me CDs of Ry Cooder. And so we I basically tailored the underscore to fit that, and playing drama plus comedy, plus country. I mean, we had our challenges, but again, it was just a great group effort and a lot of fun.
Did you write the theme song for Legend?
I did.
I love that theme song so much.
That theme worked perfect, and I was able to use that for many different feelings during the show. But yeah, it was good. That was another great opportunity and a lot of fun.
And it ties in with the feeling of the 2 Western episodes, MacGyver's Women and Serenity.
Well, you know what? That I think that was the start of it, because I know everybody really had a good time doing Serenity, because it was different. I mean, it was different Mac. It was a different MacGyver. And fall asleep on a couch, it basically gave us, and in fact, I think we even did another one where he fell asleep and dreamed of him and the knights of the Round Table.
Oh, that was Good Knight MacGyver. That was the
Good Knight MacGyver. Yeah, we did that too. So again, it just opened up some more creative, avenues for us without, being the same
same old.
Same old, same old. So Serenity, that was a blast and was really successful. And I think that probably just lit the fire to create Legend and get it going.
Well, yeah. Who was it? Was it? I'm trying to think of which of the writers, because they were saying about how Rick loved westerns, and
Yeah.
they had planned on. I don't know if it was John Shepard or Rick Drew, but they were planning on doing. I think it was Tombstone 3, and Rick was going to be in it. It was supposed to be him because of how much he loved westerns. I guess he was going to be Wyatt Earp or whoever the lead of that was, and it unfortunately fell through. Yeah. But you're right, because I remember. And you got to remember, from my point of view, I don't know what's coming week to week.
Right.
I just see the preview next time on MacGyver, and you're like, oh, okay, try and figure out what the plot's going to be. And then they show this one. Wait a minute, what? He's a cowboy, and he doesn't. And what made it great was he didn't realize it wasn't MacGyver going, wow, I'm back in Western times. It was a whole reimagining of him. What if he were a cow, born in that time? Fantastic. And the fact that he was a Civil War soldier who was giving up, guns because of that. It felt, like you said, it felt so different. And yet, because of your writing, as much as it was original music, it still felt like it was connected to the series. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's a subtle, even though there's maybe a banjo and a pedal steel in it, you can still feel that, the momentum and the ebb and the flow of the episode.
That's good.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then, of course, Good Knight MacGyver, such a monumental episode because we find out his first name.
Yes.
Now,
I remember that, and that was a big secret, and they finally came out with it. Yeah.
Did you feel like the pressure of, I got to hit this timing right on this music because at this moment he's going to say his name?
Well, you know what? Yeah, that was one episode that definitely had to be important, as was the I did the last episode as he rode off on a Harley with his son.
Stringer.
And
Stringer,
there was a couple definite music moments that I'll never forget. And I knew that, I had a big job to do on those moments. Another one, we did an episode called The Kill Zone. I went in to spot this, and I think it was Steve Downing that said, Ken, you're the bad guy in this show. He said, but we don't see him. I go, what? Mm-hmm. And apparently I had to create a sound that was this invisible, I guess, virus that was killing animals and killing people. And whenever it was present, I had to create a sound and then use the sound to be the bad guy, be the presence of this virus. And that was really kind of a challenge, but again, a lot of fun.
Wow. I haven't even thought of that, because you're right. There is a sound, but I never picked up on, that's actual essence that's put in there.
The presence of that invisible killer is there, and it was there, and I had to tell people when it was there.
Wow.
So that was a lot of, again, this show made me grow so much musically. Then we capped it off with doing the two MacGyver movies that they shot in England, just beautifully shot. Mm-hmm. And I was able to, I did that about 60% electronically, and then went up to Vancouver and sweetened it with a small orchestra, and it sounded like a beautiful symphony orchestra. When we were done, it was quite an effort, but boy, musically, that was some of my most proud musical moments were in those 2-hour movies.
And Stephen was saying too that because of MacGyver, it was an orchestra. It wasn't electronic. It was all real musicians, in a room playing.
It was for most of the episodes, but then later on, and as we got into the 90s, because I wrote that after I moved from LA, I moved up to Bellingham, Washington here. And I did those movies up here, and it was partial. It was probably 50-50 electronic, that I would simulate an orchestra and then sweeten it with live musicians. And the process then was a little more arduous than it is now. But it was along those lines. And to marry the two media together was a challenge, but boy, the payoff was wonderful because it sounded glorious.
Well, he was giving you a lot of credit too. He goes, yeah, we could have just gone electronic, but Ken came in and made sure he put the real orchestra behind it. And it does, you're right, it does make such a difference.
Yeah.
Because your ear knows it, whether you know it or not. Like you could pick up.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, the stuff that, I mean, this sampled sounds and electronic music just, it really improved on an annual basis, and to where, you know, I would defy anybody to know that it was electronic when it was literally, when it was electronic, and it just sounded orchestral. The sample sounds were that good, and you learn the tricks of the trade and how to make these sounds sound real. And it's amazing what we got away with electronically, because it would cost literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce an orchestral score for those MacGyver movies, where we were able to pull it off within our budget and make it sound like it was a huge orchestra.
Yeah.
You know, playing London, the areas of London, and all these beautiful shots, and Trails to Atlanta. Was it Trails to Atlantis? No, The Lost Treasure of Atlantis.
Yeah,
That's
Lost Treasure of Atlantis.
yeah. Trails to Doomsday.
Trails to Doomsday. Yep.
Yeah.
Trail to Doomsday.
Yeah, both of those were big, you know, Indiana Jones type shows, and
Definitely.
so it had to have that kind of, it had to be supported with that type style of music, and we were able to do it. So,
and you know what's something too? They were, you know, as thankful as obviously I and everybody else are for when you take it and film them back to back in England.
yes,
It does change the dynamic, and I think your music helped bring it back to center. Like no matter where they went, no matter where it was filmed, if your music was behind it, you go,
That's great.
I'm familiar with this.
Yeah,
I'm
good.
okay. I'm okay with them being, you know, there's Big Ben. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Because who was it? John wrote Trail to Doomsday, and he was saying that they wanted to go darker. Whoever they are that was in charge of those movies said, for this next one, we want it to be darker. We don't want it to be as lighthearted. So, you know, you could feel that. I mean, a lot of the time he's searching through the sewers looking for bad guys, you know?
yeah,
And he gets poisoned and gassed, and, you know, then the nuclear fusion thing at the end,
yeah.
that's the payoff for me. That music for that, when you know, the countdown's begun, he gets stabbed, you know, the girl throws the knife in his thigh, and then she sets it up. Well, what are you going to do now? She closed the thing, just like with Killzone is another perfect example. You have an impossible situation and you're running out of time. That music, you feel that every time. And again, you're talking to a guy who watches these a billion times, and I never get tired of it.
You've definitely seen them a lot more than I have.
Well, I recommend them.
Yeah.
They're, you know, because you feel that, oh crap, it's getting worse. Oh boy, oh man, and you could feel the clock ticking down.
Yeah.
So that music is very, and then that moment where everything's okay.
Yeah.
That's,
This show definitely forced me to write fugues, which were really handy and useful. Like if Mac was trying to figure something out and it went on for minutes and minutes, again, without being boring, and to keep the energy going and the sense of urgency, I'd start off with one line of music and just build. And I think, I forget, it may have been in one of the 2-hour movies that we did. I had 5 melodies going at the same time. And it was just to be able to do what you're saying, is just to drive it for that, you know, 4 to 5 minute sequence, and yet keep everybody on the edge of their seat. But again, this show forced me to grow as a composer, and I'll always treasure that.
Yeah. Now, did you? It sounds like a simple question. Did you dream of being a composer? Was that your goal? You kind of fell into it?
I was very, very fortunate, and I was 20. I went to LA Valley College to study medical illustration, but I was also took piano lessons. I was in a rock band in high school, so music was part of my life. But when I got to when I attended my second year of college, I discovered that mathematics and I do not get along well at all.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
So I went and hung around the music department, and I discovered the business of music. I had no idea how vast it was. I had no idea. So I went and hung around the music department. I became the music department copyist because of mine. I guess I had a nice hand for illustrations, so it transferred over to my music. So I did all the copying for them. And one day we had a music director from CBS, Don Ray, came from CBS Studios, and he composed a piece for the local symphony. And I was given the task to copy it. And it was an overnight job. And it went really well, very few mistakes. And he was somewhat impressed. And he introduced me to the copyist at CBS Studio Center at that time, who was Gerald Emmel. Jerry Emmel was a copyist at that point, also getting into composing. Huh. He later went on, and we did Dallas. We did the series Dallas and Knots Landing. And
I recognize the name.
Yeah, Gerald Emmel, great, just a great guy. So he introduced me, and within a year, I was like fourth call copyist at CBS because of that connection. And I was happy. I was like 22 years old, 23 years old. Third call, fourth call copyist at CBS. I was living large. I was happy, and that was it. Then within that year, I became good friends with Bruce Broughton, who was the music director in the department at that time and a composer. And then I became the head librarian and head copyist there at 24. So I was happy as a pig in slop. That was my life. I had people underneath me. I had a crew. We had series coming through. We were slammed. We did the Emmy Awards. I mean, it was wonderful. But again, I didn't realize that I was learning. I was on the job learning because, again, I was very ambitious 24-year-old. Mm-hmm. And I had all these opportunities to sit and experience all these different styles of music. Then Jerry Emmel, who I replaced as the copyist because he moved on to composing, asked me to orchestrate. And one of the first things he gave me was a 60-second piece of music that he wrote out the chord symbols and the melody to, and he said, "Here, just make this sound big and Western." And he was involved in I think he had 2 or 3 projects going on. And so he gave it to me to orchestrate. So I went home and I spent 4 days on this 60-second piece of music, just really doing whatever I can. And when I went to the recording session, that's what lit the fire under me, because it was the theme song to Dallas.
Oh, sheesh.
So I wrote all the counter lines, and I did all the filigree, and it was fun, and it was fabulous, and that was it. So I did, obviously after that gig, Jerry had me do quite a bit of orchestrating for him. And then again, as the doors opened, I was fortunate enough to get these opportunities, and you take them. Yeah. So then I started, maybe I started farming out a little more of the copying and doing more orchestrating. And then Jerry said that he couldn't do a series called American Girls, and would I be interested? And he introduced me to the people at Columbia TV, and I did a series called, a short series called American Girls, which was like a different Charlie's Angels. So again, then I started composing more, and then after that I was introduced to the Fantasy Island people, and that's when I was able to say goodbye to the copying, mm-hmm. and kind of goodbye to the orchestrating, and then concentrate on composing. So again, I was extremely fortunate, really lucky to have these opportunities. And again, getting onto Fantasy Island was another training ground, because at that point, this is when Dynasty was coming on. This is when Dallas was coming on. And those were nighttime soap operas where the music style didn't really change weekly. Sure. Where on Fantasy Island, I had 2 guests coming to the island every weekend, and every week was different music. I was forced to write different styles of music. So I would go home and just woodshed, jazz, or whether it was horror music or mermaid music. I did the mermaid music with Michelle Phillips, I think. No, Michelle. She was in the Mamas and Papas.
Michelle Phillips, yeah, that's it.
Michelle Phillips. She played Naya the mermaid. So again, I was forced into writing all these different styles of music, which again, it just broadened myself as a composer. So I was just, Mac, I was just probably the luckiest young man in the business in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, because the opportunities did come, and I was able to take advantage of them. And
Well, I think it helps that you knew to be grateful. Like some people in the business can be a little, I don't know, arrogant.
No, absolutely right. And I've worked with both sides. I've worked with some of the big stars that were always, the Bill Bixby was amazing. We did Mr. Merlin together, and he was a big star, but he was so appreciative of what he had, and the opportunities. It just, I definitely from day one knew how lucky I was, and now I look back on it. And I talk to my old colleagues, like, my old composing buddies, like Bill Conti and Pete Myers. We always talk about the old days and how fortunate we were to be there at that specific time, where it was a small family.
Oh, yeah.
The composing for TV, there was a small family of us, maybe 15 of us that did majority of the work for those 15, 20 years. And again, we look back at that and definitely pride ourselves in being able to, to have a good long run.
Yeah. Well, and to have someone go, listen, I can't do the show. Would you like to work on this show? Yes.
Oh yeah.
I
you have to say yes. Even if you don't, I mean, I've said yes many times. Sure, I could do that. And I go home and I have the runs for 2 days, or I have an upset stomach because I'm scared to death.
Yep.
But you do it. Because if you say no, well, then there's 50 other guys right behind you that would do it, and off they go. So
exactly.
No is not in the vocabulary for a composer who's starting out that asked if you do this style of music. You say, absolutely, I can do that.
Well,
and then you go home and you just woodshed all night and listen to every, cut of music you can.
And I know it because it gets addicting. I mean, I'm, besides the podcast and I'm a singer-songwriter, and I have the audio series, which I have to find, music to use to do it. And originally I had a guy who I was like, hey, you're a composer. You love to write instrumentals. Here's what I need. Are you up for it? Because I figure if I write it, here's what my thought was. I'm going to write an episode. I'm going to send it to him. I'm going to let him read it. And then he can come up with the beats, and maybe we'd go back and forth a bit.
Sure.
Well, at first he goes, yeah. I said, great. All right, let's start with the theme song. I want a combination between MacGyver and obviously SG-1. Can you do something like that? It has to have that sort of build to it. And he goes, yeah. So he came up with what he came up with. I had to edit it a little bit because it ran like 4 minutes. And I'm like, no, you just need a 30-second intro. And then he did a couple more pieces and then said, I'm out. I don't know if I could do this. And he just bailed on me.
Yeah.
And I thought, but and I thought, what am I going to do? Because, this is an audio series. So if it's just me reading or acting, that's fine. But you need the music. You need the tempo to be, that shift.
Yeah.
Well, I've been able to find free orchestral music here and there. And now I just, based on your work, which is another reason why I couldn't wait to talk to you, to know when to do the timing switch, like get up the tempo and now add this in, and how to merge them, because it's so crucial, And I remember thinking, okay, honest to God, and I mean this sincerely, I can hear your pieces of music in my head as I'm writing. And then I go, okay, so that would be then, okay, now we're going to ramp it up a bit and, and know how to not cut it off. You have to kind of like fade, from that high pressure. Well, now everything can calm down again.
Yeah.
And,
I still think I picked that technique up from my early years in the booth at CBS, just giving cues to the engineer. Every composer they approach a scene completely different.
mm-hmm.
Where when I was not a composer that during hiatus went and wrote my tuba symphony. You know, again, I compose music to a scene. The scene wrote the music for me. I couldn't just sit down and write a song or write an orchestral piece of music. I needed the guidance of a scene, and I can't tell you why. This is the magic of it. The magic of it was that you just feel it and you write it down. There's no reason why, you know, there's no law anywhere that's written where it says that you have to go into a tempo here at this point when this happens. Or I know Hollywood loves its dialogue, so you definitely have to clear for dialogue. You know, there's a lot of little rules, but again, it's whatever comes from your heart when you're composing this thing is what goes down on paper. Before I was composing, I worked for Don Costa. Don Costa was the arranger for Sinatra, the Osmonds, Sammy Davis. I mean, and I'd go to his house and I'd lay out his scores for him. This is before I was even a copyist, and I'd do some copying for him. And he was asked to speak one day at USC, the film class there.
Sure. And
so he said, "God," he said, I have to go to USC today and tell these people, you know, and do a seminar." I said, "Okay, well, that'll be interesting and fun." He goes, "No," he says, "because you know, they want me to tell them, you know, how I do it." And he says, I don't know how it happens, but the same experience that I experienced, you know, years later, I get it now. What Don was saying, that it just comes out, and there's no real rule on how you should apply, you know, a certain musical technique. It just he says, I can't tell them how to do it. I just do it, and that's, whether that's a cop out or ignorance or what it is, but it's true. Basically, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do about a scene until I actually sit down and I live with that scene for, you know, a number of minutes in the studio, and then you just start, and it just kind of
you feel it.
Eludes.
Yeah, I've given the exact same reason. How do you write that song, or where did that emotion come from? You have to be open to it.
Yeah,
it's part of being open to it, and also not being embarrassed to feel it, I think, is a big thing. Because a lot of times when writing, you know, am I going to do this? Am I going to go this high on this note? Am I going to, you know, because it could sound a little.
Well, you know what, and that's good. You know, when it comes from your heart, when it comes from your gut, you know, I was so fortunate that I had very few cues in my career changed or altered, and on the dubbing stage. You know, I knew they worked, and I know that I wrote a specific mood for a good reason. And whether it was what the director was trying to, you know, convey on the screen, I supported that, or what the actor couldn't do, I had to put in there. And you know, I can't tell you how many sessions I went into, and you know, we start the spotting session off with the producer saying, "Yeah, Ken, we really need some help with this actor because he didn't quite, you know, do whatever."
Nail the line. Yeah.
So again, you were the fix-it guy, and it was again, it was whenever, in fact, I remember John Moranville. I don't know if you heard that name, but he was the producer on MacGyver, and he would go to the sessions with us in Vancouver. He'd fly up with us, and if he had a question about a cue, he would say, you know, meet me in my office on the headphones, and we'd go and meet and discuss a particular approach to a scene. And you know, many times that we'd have that discussion, I would win, but again, it was because I felt that confidence that when it was written this way for a reason, and this is why. And if, you know, I had to go in there and basically, you know, voice my reasoning, and most of the time, you know, I won. So that was another fortunate yet growing experience with this show, and it was good.
The liveliness to hear that sounds like there's an energy of, you know, on the fly. Yeah, you wrote it this way, but now let's justify it, or let's switch it up a little bit. That's got to be fun because it feels very much alive.
Fun. Whether, I mean, making those changes?
Well, I mean, in hindsight, maybe it's fun, but like at the time, I imagine it's stressful, but there's a life to it.
Well, there's definitely a life to it. But again, this showed the group participation and the respect that each of us had for each other. There was no arguing on changing the cue. It was, gee, what about if we did this? And you know what? And because they are the producer and I'm the composer, it basically you try to make the boss happy so you can work next week. And so we did that. I mean, I did that. But again, you try to avoid any writing on the stand, because when you got 30 musicians in front of you, you don't want to spend time rewriting parts, because again, usually we had a mountain of music to do in a certain amount of time.
Well, that was going to be the question. My next question was, explain, if you would. I would assume you're one of the. Do you write the music before the scene is shot, or are you playing to an already shot scene?
No. TV is notorious for last minute edits. Again, I was lucky to be on shows that had their act together, and very rarely did I have to change a cue on the stage because of an editorial recent change. So I usually get it. The earliest I would see it is probably a work print or a script. If it's like the 2-hour movies, I think they sent me scripts, and then I was able to start planning. But usually on TV, there's no time to even think. I mean, I remember looking at my show on a Friday night on the air just to see it, and I'd be seeing previews to next Friday's show that I don't spot till Monday.
Wow.
So that was a little intense, but that was television. That's how television worked. I mean, a lot of it was right up against it, to where they'd basically run from the dubbing stage to the tape machine to put it in so it makes the feed in New York by showtime. I mean, it was that intense. So
that's the opposite of what I thought. I thought you were maybe one of the first people to see it, but you're one of the last.
No, you are one of the last. So if at best, I would get a work print, and then I would spot it on the day. And and most of the time it was, quote, locked, and then sometimes it wasn't. And then you'd get during the course of the week when you're writing, you may get from the film editor, you might get some changes where things were just tweaked or scenes may have been cut, and then you can adjust.
Sure.
But again, for a composer like me that catches everything, any changes were devastating to me, because again, everything was just so finely tailored that to change it was not pleasant or fun at all. But again, you do it.
Do you think of them like your children? This little piece of music that I just did, don't mess with my baby.
Yeah. Well, yes. And those times that Mr. Moranville called me into this booth to talk about I mean, I was there, protecting the family basically. And this is why I wrote it. There was a good reason why I wrote it like this. And then you just had to discuss that.
I would think that was probably the hardest part of the whole darn thing is, wait, I already completed this. This was a masterpiece in my mind, and now you're messing with it.
Definitely.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was. It was hard. It was hard for me, but part of the process. So
did you
all good.
Did you name pieces of music? Like,
yes, every cue had an M number, and every cue had a title.
Really? Like it was something like a name that you whipped up of?
Oh, is it just a name that best describes the scene, or just something for the cue sheet? Because again, cue sheets they're copyright. They're critical. They're your future.
I didn't know how artistic you got with the naming. Where
Oh yeah, you got
this one is called Beth and Sally. Why? I don't know.
No. Sometimes there were play on words. I mean, usually it was late at night. And some of those titles are quite funny. But yeah, every cue has its own title, its own M number, where depending on where it falls in the show.
Yeah. But I always wished, and maybe you did too. I always wished they came out with a DVD collection of your music from the show.
Well, I've probably got dozens and dozens of inquiries from people saying, "Gee, where can I get the CD of the scores to the shows?"
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they didn't do it back in those days. They just didn't do it. I mean, the DVDs for the series didn't come out until not that long ago.
Right.
The series has been long gone. Unfortunately, when I just, in fact, when I was down there getting the stuff out for Mark to send to Paris for his museum, I found boxes and boxes of all the old tapes. I even have MacGyver, some of my scores, they gave it to me on 1/4-inch tape that has been in the garage for 30 years and, you know, is probably crumble if I put it on a tape machine. So then it went to DAT tape it was stored on for a while. But for a long time, it was 1/4-inch tape. Then it went to cassettes, little audio cassettes. And then, you know, when I was doing the show, I never got anything digitally. So you know, again, one of these days in my retirement, as I always threaten, I'd like to go down there with a lot of head cleaner, and put it on a tape deck and try to capture them electronically and digitize these guys.
Honest
that
to
would be
God,
a massive project,
but I think the reward would be there, and I think if you know, there'd be people that would gladly market it for you.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Again, there's a lot of legal. I mean, again, the studio owns the publishing, so that would be a whole.
Sure.
That would be a major undertaking, and I don't even know if that's even possible. But just for my own, you know, gratitude, I'd love to be able to go and hear some of these scores again.
Yeah.
I think the movies, I think I do have on CD personally, but yeah, that'd be my next long weekend project, would be to digitize all those, and that would be quite a task. But, yeah, really rewarding though.
Oh, without a doubt. And I'm telling you, there is me alone, but I know the millions of others that listen.
Yeah.
They are, to you, they're just changes from maybe, you know, a slower tempo to fast. But to us, when I hear anything MacGyver or even say the name MacGyver, that's what's going through my head, you know. And like I said, as I'm writing, I can hear those in my head. Like, yeah, I know what's going on right now.
Well, I'll take that as mission accomplished.
No, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I was looking at some of the episodes, just, you know, some of the more emotional, like passages.
Yeah, I've gotten emails on that one.
I mean,
yeah, that was an emotional, that was a gut wrencher. That was beautiful. I mean, that was a beautiful episode on the boat, right?
Yeah. Osiris, and it looks like MacGyver's gonna die, and he gets to see his parents, and he has to say goodbye to Grandpa Harry. Gut wrenching, but character defining episodes. You know, like really important to the character.
That one sticks out to me too, Mac. Definitely.
Yeah.
That was again. I loved playing emotion. I loved it, and it was fun to color it depending on, you know, what was on the screen. So,
I'll tell you, and they're so good that we get emotional every time we watch it, because what I'm doing, besides for myself, I have 2 kids, and my wife and I with the kids will watch a random episode throughout the week. And, you know, the Madonna, the passages, I should say, the stringer, like anything where there's supposed to be an emotion, we'll cry. Like it's one of those. And again, talking to a guy who's watched them a trillion times, I could still watch it. And there are moments where, you know, you get all choked up. And
that was a beautiful show. And, you know, as was the funeral scene. And I think Trail to Doomsday too, where they did a long, beautiful, they filmed it beautifully. The funeral of his friend.
Yeah.
That MacGyver movie was another just beautifully executed scene.
Yeah, because they show, as he's standing there, there's like a flashback to him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that whole thing was really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, so are you composing now or no?
No, basically I'm not composing now. Every now and then the local symphony asks me to compose a piece. Mm-hmm. And what I've done is I've taken excerpts from the music I've written over the years. In fact, one of them was called, I forget what I even called it, but it was excerpts from the MacGyver movies. It started off with the big orchestral part of Mac driving through London. Mm-hmm. And so the piece started like that. And I just basically compiled themes from that movie into one piece of music and conducted it, and the local orchestra here played it. And,
wow.
It was a lot of fun.
I
A
wish
lot of
somebody
fun
had.
to do.
I wish somebody had videotaped it.
I do have a videotape of that.
You should throw it on YouTube.
I should throw it on YouTube. Well, again, you get in the issues. Well, again, the studio wouldn't care.
Right.
But,
You're not making money off of it, so you're okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So yeah, I could probably do that.
Yeah, definitely. And then I'll snag it and promote it on the Facebook page for you.
Okay.
And you're doing real estate now?
Yeah. I moved to Bellingham, Washington in '91, and I composed again until 2000 up here. So again, I had my studio here. I moved up here in the middle of doing Melrose Place for here in Spelling, and then I did the MacGyver movies up here. I did lots of movie of the weeks up here. I was able to find a fabulous guitar player in Seattle that drove up weekly to do Melrose Place with me. He was also my engineer, so he mixed all the MacGyver stuff we did. I had an incredible sax player from Vancouver that would come down. So I basically had a real successful electronic studio career here for a good 10 years after I moved here.
Wow.
But I love it up here. And
Sure.
and when the music business changed in 2000, 2001, it just changed. Budgets were slashed. It was ugly.
Mm-hmm.
I was tired.
Sure.
I mean, again, I was tired, and I wasn't about to move back to LA. So I basically hung up, put the pad and pencil away and sold Bellingham. Because again, I get it. I came here for a reason. I'm an outdoor guy. I have a hiking club. I love skiing and boating and hiking and
Me too.
and so this is paradise up here. It is just paradise. And plus it's an hour from Vancouver.
Right.
Being dual citizenship, I was able to exercise that and be able to do Canadian co-productions. So I did a couple series up in Canada for him. And again, I recorded them here in Bellingham and then drove an hour to deliver the tape. In those times it was pre 9/11, and I was able to cross the border easily.
Sure.
So it was good, and I just love it up here. So
Yeah.
selling Bellingham is what I do now, and it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as fun as writing scores, but it's fun selling Bellingham because I understand when people come here from the big cities, I know what they're looking for and what can turn them on.
Well, I liked your page when I saw it today on Facebook. I was trying to find you. I found you on Twitter, and I couldn't find you on Facebook, but I found your page for real estate, and I went, oh, gladly. And I'm looking at the pictures, and you're right, because I always said if I could travel and just do sightseeing, it would be in your area in Vancouver.
Oh, there's no question.
Because Vancouver alone.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, and besides that, I know all the sites because of all the shows that have been filmed there. I could tell you on that corner, that's where MacGyver steps, or over there, I would spend forever there.
It's a beautiful, beautiful corner of the world. I mean, we're blessed up here. We haven't had the floods, we haven't had the hurricanes, we haven't had the fires. I mean, again, it's just a beautiful corner of the world. And and I've sold houses to people that have lived all over the globe. And I take them on a hike and get them to the top of the mountain. And I say, okay, so what do you think? And they just shake their head, and that's why they're living here too. I mean, it's just a beautiful part of the world. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I always love the aspect of real estate too, because I'm a sucker for exploration. So like with the hiking and the skiing and all, I love that too. And to do real estate, you're kind of like, I want to see what's in this house. When my wife and I, through the years, have had to buy a house or two, well, that lit a fire under us. So now anytime I pass a house, I think, I wonder what that looks like in there.
Yeah.
I want to see what's going on in that one. And you imagine what if you had to live there. So I've always dabbled with the thought of, wouldn't it be fun to do that type of work?
Well, it's fun because I sell the area, and plus I'm still my own boss. So if it's a beautiful day and I can go hiking. Mm-hmm. Again, being a composer, I mean, you're an independent contractor. You are. Back in the days, it was 7 days a week for many, many months. But again, that was my choice. Mm-hmm. So it's still nice to be able to make a decent living still, and pick and choose your days when you can do it.
Has the pandemic affected that a lot?
It has, but in a different way that you would think. People are dying to get out of Seattle. We are seeing more people coming here from California and Seattle trying to get out of Dodge in these last 6 months than we have in the last 6 years.
Wow.
So we've sold some of the larger homes have been selling finally because of these people that are moving here and doing their business remotely. It is definitely visible here. So yeah, it did affect it, but that for my business in real estate in a positive way.
Thank God.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm a lucky guy, man. I'm blessed with my both careers. I've been very, very fortunate.
Before I let you go, because I don't want to, as much as I love talking to you, I don't want to be a pest and keep you forever. Did you do because again, these are questions that, and when we're done, I may be sending you an email or two, because there's going to be, I meant to ask them this.
Yeah.
With the theme song, did you update the theme song?
No.
No, because every couple of years it would get changed.
Yeah. Boy, I can't remember that changing much. I've updated other theme songs on series that I've done but no, my MacGyver, I thought just stayed pretty much the same. The unions required us to re-record them every year.
Yeah.
That was just a union function. They may have tweaked it a little bit. I was not involved with that.
Well, you know what I think it is? It wasn't that it was rewritten. It was, like you said, re-recorded with more emphasis.
Yeah.
On,
Remixed.
Yeah, and it matters because, say, season 6 was so much better than season 2's version because there's that that comes in, and you could feel the momentum of, this is MacGyver. This isn't some show. You're dealing with an iconic, and the changes that came along during your time felt more gravitas to it.
Yeah, no, yeah. I can't say that I remembered that, to be honest with you.
Huh.
But yeah, I wasn't involved in the re-recording of that.
Yeah, well, whoever did, they did a heck of a job.
Yeah. Well, again, the music business was changing in those 80s and 90s. Technically, technology and mixing and microphones and tape and digitizing. I mean, it all changed, and it definitely has an argument whether it definitely improved, if you will, if you can say that. But I know a lot of people are going back to the analog world.
Well, probably save more time once they went digital, right? I mean, that was part of the benefit.
No, the only benefit was for the studio to save money. Instead of hiring 30 musicians, hiring an engine, a studio with a crew, paying benefits to all those musicians, paying reuse to all those musicians, it changed in 1 year. In 1990, it was all orchestral. 91, one show had orchestra, and that was Star Trek.
Huh.
Just about every other TV show was electronic in a 12-month period. The community, the Hollywood, professional musicians community died a quick death overnight. It was heartbreaking. But again, if you were a working composer and wanted to continue to work, you had to jump into the MIDI world. You had to go electronic because that's where everything went. Literally in 1 year, it changed that quickly. Production companies would save thousands. I mean, it would be a package deal. In fact, it went from me being the composer, which is I was paid to compose and orchestrate, and then it would go to the copyist. Then it would go, to the studio. Then everybody would be involved. And within 1 year, I was the composer, I was the performer, the musician, the producer, the music editor. I wore 9 hats all of a sudden because it was a package deal.
Sure.
You were given X amount of dollars to give them a tape. So again, it changed that drastically, that quickly, and technology was changing weekly. It was a rock and roll show, I'm telling you, in the early 90s, because it all happened so abruptly that, again, if you wanted to be a working composer, you had to go electronic. Those that didn't embrace, the 4-letter word MIDI, just didn't work as much. And that was just a fact. I mean, the business changed that quickly.
Well, I'm glad that you you had your priorities straight and cared more about the creative process and didn't get yourself in a lot of trouble.
No, that was good. Again, I was a lucky young man.
Well, I'll let you go, and
Great.
I'll probably bother you down the road if that's okay with you.
Anytime, man.
And I'll get this up as soon as possible, and I'll send you the link in email.
Sounds great.
And thanks again for not only chatting with me, but giving me the definitive soundtrack. It's what I consider the best.
I really, really appreciate that.
You're welcome. I will talk to you later.
All right. Thanks again, Mac.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye. The MacGyver podcast is part of the Forever Adventure Network. Some original artwork by Joseph Arnold. Donations can be made at Patreon to Mac Jackson. Look for our group pages on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at MacGyver Podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review. And remember, stay creative, everyone. The Forever Adventure Network. Welcome to the adventure.
Hi, this is Amara from the Always Podcast. I want to make sure you know about another awesome show, the MacGyver SG-1 audio series.
His eyes darted over to Jack's weapon. Sam, start taking all the gunpowder out of these bullets. He stunned Jack by taking the gun from his hands, and with one swift motion released the clip, discharging the bullets in the chamber before handing the empty gun back to the general.
It's written, edited, and performed by Mac Jackson of the MacGyver Podcast. He's bringing together the worlds of MacGyver and Stargate to bring us all new and ongoing adventures.
For some reason, something caused both Jack and MacGyver to glance up at the second-floor office window that hung over the large storage hangar. It was a shadow of a moving figure, a figure who now was staring down at them. Before they could say anything or move, the man ran over to the railing and opened fire on them. In that moment, they each knew they were about to be riddled with bullets.
Get into the epic story and hear how brothers Mac and Jack work together.
Suddenly, he spun on his heels to his brother. Jack, give me your phone. The general quickly took it from his pocket and handed it over. Yeah, it isn't working, you know. No, not as a phone. With that, MacGyver knelt down and smashed Jack's cell phone off the ground and cracked it open. As he pried it apart and reached for his knife, Jack stood stunned. That's my phone.
And how they disagree.
As he turned the engine off, he rechecked the inside of his pocket and pulled out his automatic handgun to check the chamber. As he verified the bullets loaded, he could see the disappointing glare of his brother in the seat next to him. What? This again? I don't like guns, Jack. Yeah, me neither. I like getting shot a lot less.
Subscribe and review today on Apple iTunes and like the Facebook page to keep up on all the latest episodes. I've been catching up on past episodes, and you don't want to miss it.